Getting all this connected here. I don't know. Good to go. All right. Let's see. All right, and welcome. This is another Out of Bounds series. I'm still with this series. I'm bringing on. I wanted to focus more on a lot of coaches, athletes, thought leaders, and really just sort of sharing their insights, sharing topics. Maybe maybe some. I wanted to call this Out of Bounds because maybe it might be topics where like, hey, maybe you want to talk about, but maybe trying to figure out the platform for it. But this is Out of Bounds with your host, Pointel Langford. Today, I have Derek with the CWA, and this is actually an up and coming. Um, I don't know how you would call it. I guess we got real pro wrestling, and see, this is something well, especially with my audience, I've got to get this fixed because we associate pro wrestling with WWE and all this stuff, but now we actually have actual pro wrestling leagues like the CWA, and Derek is actually he's the I would say the co-founder or founder.
Yeah, co-founder. There's one other partner with me, co-founder and commissioner, I guess you could say.
Okay. So yeah, so we got him on today, and really just talking about how this even got started, what the future plans are for this, and everything else along the way. So I want to welcome Derek to the Out of Bounds series with the Creative Brew. I'm still trying to figure out if I'm going to separate this out or if it's going to be a whole separate show. Odds are it'll probably a separate show. So right now I'm calling this Out of Bounds. And Derek, you take it away. Just bring you on and maybe share a little bit about your story and how this even got started.
Yeah, man. So thanks for having me, Quanto. I appreciate the time to be able to be here on Out of Bounds podcast. But yeah, so for me, I'm a Pennsylvania boy, born and raised. And for anybody that's a wrestling fan, you understand that it's a pretty big part of the culture around here to be in the sport of wrestling. So, um, I started off at a small school called Kerwinsville. Just at a tiny school, and wrestled high school there, and then moved on to wrestle at Lock Haven University for 5 years.
Mm.
Coached at the Division 1 level at Bucknell for a couple of seasons, and now I'm currently the head high school coach at Bloomsburg High School. Um, so for me, I basically lived on a different exit all across I-80 in Pennsylvania growing up. That's what I tell my friends and my family is I just pick a different exit to live on about every 10 years. Um, so that's kind of been my life in a nutshell in Pennsylvania. But yeah, so I mean, for me, obviously, you brought me on because of the Championship Wrestling Association. That has been a work in progress for years, and finally, we've been able to see it come to fruition in the summer of 2024 when we began to host showcases in the multiple markets in which we plan to have professional teams. So, to kind of answer your question of like, how do I name this thing, right? Because for me, I had the same issue. We talk pro wrestling, you think of the WWE, or if you say, well, it's real pro wrestling. Well, there was already a league 20 years ago that was created and attempted. And so every time somebody thinks real pro wrestling, a lot of times we think back to that. So we've come up with the hashtag or I guess kind of the namesake. We call it folk style gone pro because then it encapsulates the style that we're competing in, but then also it reigns to the understanding that it is post collegiate wrestlers that are competing in our league as well. So you're not the only guy who's had to stumble across that, trying to figure out the right way to say it. That was actually one of the biggest hurdles in the beginning, was getting kind of a solid footing on how to present this to people as well.
Yeah. So what do you so as far as for you? Because I mean, I know that's been the real and it's really an ongoing topic right now, especially within the wrestling community, is figuring out ways of expanding wrestling and bringing it out bringing it more to a mainstream audience. Unless you're like a wrestling fan, hardcore, like collegiate, Olympic wrestling fan, then it tends to be a really tight knit community. How's your plan as far as like getting this out into more of a mainstream audience, or do you plan on just keeping it within that wrestling niche, or that I mean, as far as that audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can do both at the same time. I think building awareness within the community that already exists is really important. And so we've been doing different things that in terms of making the awareness from like the university standpoint, so their athletes have some awareness about it. And then also, I think a big part of it too is utilizing traditional media as ways to get it in front of maybe a casual sports viewer, right? So like if we think about like social media, we're kind of tied to the things that we already know and we enjoy and we like because we follow those things on social media. But if you're watching a TV show or you're listening to the radio, the commercial just comes on. It's chosen for you. It's not you choosing the commercial. So that's where tying in traditional media can help to expose and create awareness of the league itself to these quote unquote casual sports fans or people that are not necessarily wrestling fanatics as well.
Yeah, yeah. So what now as far as with CWA, I mean, I know obviously you're setting up all these teams. Is it how many people is on each roster?
Yeah, so right now we're utilizing the showcases to actually build the rosters out. So we've had two so far. We've had one in Pittsburgh in the summer, and then recently in October we did one in Williamsport, which is a part of our Central Pennsylvania market. So that's about for people that are kind of because you're a West Coast guy and probably get a lot of West Coast following. That's about an hour east of Penn State University, so State College, PA. So that's kind of the general vicinity, that Penn State, Lock Haven, Bucknell, Bloomsburg region. All those universities are within an hour of each other and have Division I wrestling teams. So that whole central Pennsylvania region we felt would be a great spot to have a team kind of housed as well. And so we have those two showcases. We're going to be in Philadelphia the night before NCAA's, which are also in Philly. So that'll cover the third of our six markets that will be here relatively soon here in the fall of 2025. So
Okay, cool. Now, as far as just, and sometimes you're building up something like this, which I mean, it you definitely can't do it alone. When you initially, I guess for people, I generally ask this, like especially if they're creating something or building something out, especially something like this. Like, what was the initial ideal? Like, what like I didn't know if there was like a certain moment where you felt like, okay, I think we could actually make this, happen.
yeah, so initially 3 years ago, the thought process was everybody graduates, they go to the freestyle circuit. So let's make it freestyle. Let's keep it consistent with the group of people that we want to be competing in this. But then as time marched on, we realized that USA Wrestling already has something in place that supports the athletes that are wrestling freestyle after college. But there's nothing for folk style. There's a gap, right? Like there's a place where even like the top-notch athletes, they're 22, 23, 24 years old coming out of college. And if you don't make a world team or you don't make an Olympic team or you're not a part of an RTC and consistently competing, there's not really anything for you in the competition realm. Well, that's where we come in, right? Like we fill that gap because not everybody is a freestyle wrestler. We are grown up on folk style wrestling, right? More of the casual wrestling fan is a folk style wrestling fan. In the United States, it's the same. I can equate it to American football, right? That's what folk style wrestling is. The rest of the world calls what we call soccer, the rest of the world calls football. But what we call football is something completely different.
Yeah.
And so for us, like that's like taking Micah Parsons and telling him you played a great career at Penn State. Now you got to go play soccer for Real Madrid because that's what the rest of the world does. You know, you're taking him out of his element of what made him successful in his sport, and just because of a namesake, that's what you'd be doing. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more parallels to freestyle and folk style wrestling, but in our eyes, we have an opportunity to give the American people what they already understand. They can digest it easily because they're familiar with it. Even if you weren't a wrestler, if you went to your local high school and watched your buddies wrestle, you had a general idea of what was going on. And so this equates to that as well. And we think that that can help transition some casual fans into, some CWA fans too.
Yeah, yeah, I know for the most part, and hopefully USA Wrestling. I really hope they sort of push the marketing efforts. But I know just with a lot of people, casual fans, I know a lot of them tend to check out even like the NCAA's on ESPN, and they'll see like the championships or the semifinals. So you'll have casual fans sort of checking it out, but even for maybe for like Pennsylvania, and I know certain parts of the country is different, and I know Pennsylvania is a hardcore wrestling area. Is there? I didn't know if you with CWA is there access to more television outlets than it would be like in other parts of the country, or are you still having that same hurdle even in that area?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we're housed on Rockfin, so we do our cards and our showcases on Rockfin right now. Obviously, the goal is to be able to get things on to cable television, right? To utilize whether it's either a big sports company like an ESPN, or if it's a regionalized broadcast like you would see for the NHL or MLB, right? It's finding what works for us as we continue to build this thing, and seeing where those partnerships could be potentially at. Um, but right now, with us being on Rockfin, obviously it's a wrestling centric website. I guess it's more of a platform, I guess, but it's a wrestling centric platform. A lot of the wrestling people have kind of gravitated there, and that's another way for us to be able to build awareness for the league as well. Just putting it in front of people that are already looking.
Yeah. So what for you, I mean, what do you feel like your future plans would be, or maybe just playing hypothetical, like if you did have a television outlet, like what would you do? Like what would be your first, like some of your first ideals? Like, hey, we actually got a signed deal with a channel, with a television station, like or channel, and we've got a massive distribution or audience. Like what would you for you like what would be your some of your ideals?
Well, I just think it's being able to build the storylines, right? Like a lot of these guys have stories, and when you have an outlet to be able to deliver them on, I think that that's such a huge part of it. For us rolling into the 2025 season, right? We're doing these showcases right now to build the rosters, but then the plan is to have dual meet format, right? And almost an NFL style schedule where it's week to week. You could have Pittsburgh at New Jersey one week, and then the next week Pittsburgh is at home hosting Lehigh Valley. So those types of things are that full fledged schedule is what we're looking to do across the board with this. But then again, you're building the storylines into it. You're creating rivalries within markets that are close to each other, rivalries with guys that had, gone back and forth in college and now they're competing at the next level. So it's all of those things. It's really the storytelling aspect and being able to capture all of that all within the season, and leading into an ultimate dual meet championship as well.
Okay, that'd be cool. I always, and maybe you can elaborate, like, why do you feel like? Because I mean, I remember the like the Real Pro Wrestling that came out, a while back, which I mean, it felt like it was a good, a really good idea. But why do you feel like, personally for you, like, did you feel like that could have been done better, or do you feel like, hey, this was at least a good starting point for something that you could evolve into?
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations. The first person through the door always gets bloodied, right? they had the vision, and I felt like they had great competitors. They had the opportunity by building the teams. I just think that the runway, it just didn't happen. I know, like, from my understanding is that they filmed a lot of it and then they distributed it out week to week. So I think for them, that their intention and their vision was on the right path, was very aligned with the way I see things going for the CWA. It's just they didn't have that. A lot of people say they were ahead of their time, and I would have to agree with that. Um, and that maybe the wrestling world just wasn't ready for something like that. But at the same time, I think that if they had more runway, they would have got there. I think they would have, maybe, rather than bringing it out maybe weight class to weight class, if it was just round by round, so that you could see it that way. But at the same time, again, it's first one through the door gets bloodied, and it's a learning experience for everybody. That it's things that I've seen. I've watched back to what they did and see where we can make adjustments to improve our product as well. So it's all good things, though. I think it needed to happen, and the fact that it happened 20 years ago, I think is a big reason why I'm kind of in the spot I am today, because I saw it as a high school kid. So
Yeah. Yeah. So with the CWA, I mean, I know you're getting these teams and stuff set up. Is it? I didn't know if it was just right now, if it was just men's wrestling only, or you plan on like implementing like the women's, or maybe doing some kind of weird co-ed type team. I don't know.
yeah, no, no, we've definitely dabbled in the thought of doing, like, having a co-ed team, right? Like, you have a women's weight and a men's weight. And you have, like, say 13 weights, and 7 of them are men's and 6 are women's or whatever. And doing something to that effect. Right now we're at 9 weights and it's strictly men. Biggest reason is because we are folk style, right? And it seems like, especially on the collegiate level, because women's is freestyle, right? The girls transition in high school from folk style into freestyle when they go to college. It doesn't really gel appropriately right now. Things change every year. I mean, 2 years ago we didn't have 3-point takedowns, in college and wrestling, and now they're all the way down to elementary school. So, things change fast, and it's not to say that things wouldn't change with us, but for right now, our focus is on developing the men's markets, and ultimate goal long term, I think, is to definitely bring the women in. But obviously we want to have it to be in a good place before we bring them in as well.
Yeah. Now, I didn't know with the and even with CWA, I didn't know if there's are there specific rules that you implement in there that might be a little different, or do you try to stay more with the with folk style?
Yeah, so I mean, it is folk style wrestling. I mean, the big differences is that it's the traditional scoring from what we had from 2 years ago to
Mhm.
102 years ago. And then we have, but they're actually a 3 minute period, 3 3 minute periods as well. So it's a 9 minute go. And then
Ooh.
a 2 minute overtime. And then if there's no score at the end of the overtime, we go to a standing over under body lock clinch for the win.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just a very clean, concise. Somebody's going to win right in that moment. Um, and then we also do riding time can be awarded every period. So because they're 3 minute periods, you have the opportunity to get a riding time point at the end of each period. We erase the riding time clock at the end of each period. If someone has it over a minute, they get a point. If they don't, then they don't get a point. There's no riding time
Okay.
awarded for the period. So
Oh, that's good. That's good. So going back with the because I know you were talking about storylines and things like that. I with that, do you feel like personally for you, are you trying to would you like to see like a lot of these people sort of develop their own sort of brands within the CWA? I felt like that's been the biggest thing. Like I actually talked to one of my friends about like but they were like, how come we can't push, wrestling and how come it's not big? And I was like, well, coming from like just a marketing aspect, like if I was on the outside looking in, to be honest, like when I hear a lot of those guys do interviews and stuff, even like at after matches, like at the NCAA's or something, it's like they're just not really good interviewers. I mean, like they're not one of those where it's like you can tell a complete difference. Like even when like after a football game or a basketball game, like they're a little bit more polished. Is like you got these young kids. they're talking is like they're just, they're just not marketable. They're really great wrestlers, awesome, but they're just not marketable. Um, how do you feel like are you trying to change the stigma with that with the people that you have in the CWA?
Yeah, I mean, so what we tell our guys, right, is we tell them we want them to be their most genuine selves. Whether it's in their celebration, whether it's in their walkout song, whether it's in, whatever they do, like take on a persona, not gimmicky to the level like WWE is, but just be your most authentic self. If you love rap music, play rap music, man. That's you, right? If you're a hick and you live in the middle of the sticks and you wrestle for the Central PA Whitetails, uh, play that country music and come out to whatever, and that's what I'm saying. Like you have to embrace yourself. And I understand like in high school and in college, like there's the whole idea of like being a professional or act like you've been there, right? So but for us, like that doesn't push the envelope. And you have to do that. You have to make it a show on top of the sport itself and allow people to embrace you for who you are, and also for you to just be yourself, be the most genuine version of yourself. So we've had guys that do that, like Ricky Durso, who wrestled at F&M. He's got like Jerry curled hair, and he always has a Hawaiian shirt unbuttoned, and he's ripped and everything. So he comes out to Mambo Number 5 by Lou Bega. Like it just fits him, Like he's just living his best life. He's on an island once every other month. It feels like somewhere in either the Mediterranean or over, somewhere. And he lives that persona when he's there wrestling for us. So that's the type of thing that we're talking about. Is those guys being um, you know, themselves to the fullest extent.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. I think that's been the biggest thing that um, just especially with with people trying to market the whole sport overall is like, not allowing people to sort of have their own personalities or personas and like you said, nothing to where it gets like too, off the wall like WWE, but allowing people to sort of be absorbed in their, sort of unique personalities and brands. And I think that helps helps everyone out when people can get more exposed to these wrestlers and athletes and sort of see what what they like or what the some of their interests. I think all that stuff plays a part. When you see someone, you just see them sort of wrestling and competing, like you enjoy that for the competition part, but like I just don't feel like that would grow the sport like it could and exposing people that have no clue about wrestling, like saying like, wow, who is this guy? Who's this? This flamboyant, got a Hawaiian shirt, and doing all this. And also too is a great wrestler, that all that stuff adds up. And I think that helps build the, the brand presence. And so yeah, that definitely a good idea. That's I think you're on the right track with with a lot of things. And I guess personally for you, like I know you've been sort of with CWA. I know you've been focused on creating these storylines, and I sort of see a weird little pattern with every coach that I talk to. Like a lot of these coaches or people that's been associated with wrestling, they tend to be very multifaceted. So like for you personally, like what is there other interests or other things that you like you're passionate about? Because I always see it's sort of a pattern that I've noticed with a lot of these coaches. Like they love the coach, they love wrestling, but they find ways of infusing like maybe other things, other passions or hobbies or interests into what they're doing with their wrestling. But I didn't know if you had other interests or hobbies.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big hockey fan actually. So I love the NHL. Um, and I think a lot, like I listen to a lot of hockey podcasts, and a lot of it isn't just about like the players, who wins, who loses. It's a lot about like the business side, the salary cap, how that works, the collective bargaining agreement between the players and the actual franchises. So a lot of that, like I've implemented or begin to implement into the actual league, right? Like I would say that probably the NHL, the way that they run a hard cap system for their salary cap makes the most sense for what we're doing, especially in the early stages. Like you don't have New York Yankee old money right now in our league, you know. So you can't just be spending and paying the luxury tax for the Pittsburgh Pirates, you know, and doing all that kind of stuff. In the NFL, the way they transition their salaries into bonuses so that they can just be cap compliant, like that type of stuff just doesn't work. But like, so because I'm a big hockey fan and I've watched and learned and I've really studied that league a lot just because of my fandom to it. Um, I've implemented those things into the building process of the CWA where it makes it fair for the athlete from a compensation standpoint, but it also allows you know, these franchises to be able to succeed and have sustainability as well because they're not just being raked over or they're not owned by like a billionaire, right? Where they're just cashing a check because it's one of 17 ventures they're in as well. So you know, those types of things to help with the sustainability of the CWA as well. So if I had one hobby, I guess you said that kind of cross references, I would say it would probably be being a fan of the NHL and really a student of their game as well and how they've created that league and built it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, I do encourage, even being on the creative side, I do encourage a lot of people to, and something like you're doing, it could be something in a whole different sport or a whole different thing altogether. But when you start to connect the dots with a lot of different things, it actually helps create weird little solutions that you normally wouldn't consider. That was, I mean, even talking about the hockey, I mean, that was like, okay, well, that's actually a pretty cool idea, implementing what they're doing into what you're trying to do with CWA. That's I've never heard anything like that. So yeah, just I always sort of ask that with some of the coaches that people that I talk to that's associated with wrestling. A lot of them tend to be one of those where like they love pulling or love doing other little things, and they find ways of sort of pulling everything together, which is cool. I know. Even with me, like I said, I've got this, I got my other podcast and, I got my design business, but I tend to, pull a lot of different things from other sources or just things that I'm passionate about. And I try to, infuse everything together. But yeah, as you can tell from the background, I'm a big sci-fi junkie too. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
love
cool.
comic books and sci-fi. So this is a book that I plan on, I'm trying to develop and trying to get that out. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so I love trying to pull everything together into what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess right now, I mean, if there's anything, what's some things that maybe on the motivational, inspirational side, like what are some things? Maybe there's people that hey, they've got this ideal and they're trying to figure out ways of getting it, really getting it launched or at least getting a kernel of it started. Like what would you tell these people that maybe they've got the ideal but they just you know don't know where to go or don't know how to get started? Like what would you tell them right now?
I would say build yourself a blueprint of like what you want it to look like. And then you just have to start spreading the good word. I think about it. You know, if it's something that you're truly passionate about, truly believe in, truly believe that it's gonna um, make a difference in the society or in our world, I think you just have to push forward and just pull the trigger. I tell this to my high school wrestlers so much. Like we watch them in practice and they drill amazingly, but then they go out in the match and they're so afraid of making a mistake that they get gun shy and they never take the shot that they're capable of taking. And that's our motto. You got to pull the trigger, and that's the biggest thing. Once you do that and you put yourself in the middle of it and you force yourself to get in it and get in the dirt and get in the mud and fight to keep pushing it forward, that's when you'll see the snowball effect start to happen. You know, for us, like we're building and it's a process, right? Like first showcase we had a couple hundred people, then the next one we had a few hundred people, right? Like so it's but and every time someone comes up to you like, man, this is awesome, just keep going. And that's what you need. Like we're at a showcase and people are watching it, you know, they're having a beer, they're buying a t-shirt, they're hanging out, and they're like, they come up to me and they're like, man, this is awesome. Just keep doing it, you know? And for me, I try to treat it like church, right? Like I tell, hey, bring a friend next time, you know? Like that's what that's what the pastor says to you, right? Like, hey,
Yeah, yep.
you enjoy the good word, bring a friend next time. They might enjoy it too. So that's the same approach that I take from that perspective as well. Is like, hey man, I appreciate you being here. I love that you love it. Bring a friend next time. That's kind of my tell to people, like that's my mission, is to have them bring a friend, because really their friend might not be um, a wrestling guy, right? He might be a basketball guy. I have a good friend who is he all he did was play basketball his whole life. We were co-workers for a few years, and we grew a friendship over that work time, and he gained interest in what I was doing and how I was building this thing, and he showed up and he goes, dude, this is sweet. Like, and I said, I know, like I said, I just need people need to see it so that they can understand. And I said, next time, just bring a friend. And so that's the big thing, is like, if you want to get people on board and get people that aren't necessarily wrestling people on board, it takes the wrestling people to tell a non-wrestling person that they know personally, hey, come check this out with me. Let's go have some fun, and see if you like it.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. I like that. That's something I might start doing that myself.
Yeah, bring a friend, man.
Oh.
Bring a friend.
So yeah, I mean, so how can people get in touch with you, maybe reach out, as far as even trying to find out like when the next event showcase is for CWA? What's the best way of getting in touch with you?
Yeah, so we have a website, CWAwrestle.com. That has all the news and notes and information about any upcoming events or anything like that. You can also follow us on social media. So we're on X, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook. All those are at CWA Wrestle. And then obviously, there's the submission for the newsletter. It's down at the bottom of the website as well. You can follow us on Rockfin. If you don't have Rockfin and you're kind of on the fence about whether you want to get it, I mean, it's the same as if not less than your Netflix account. To subscribe to that. So you can subscribe through rockfin.com/CWA Wrestle, to subscribe through us. That helps to support directly, really, the mission of growing this thing. If you're looking for a way to directly support it and also be able to see all of the showcases, that's a great way to do it, as well. We also have we have a merch store online on our website as well. Anyone that wants any merch has all six teams in the league logo shirt that I'm wearing right here.
Ooh,
We'll
sweet.
have to get one of those for you, Quantel. We'll send that
Yeah.
over to you, buddy. We'll get you hooked up. So yeah, that's the main ways to get in touch with us and stay involved and see what's going on. Again, March 19th, night before NCAA's. It's a Wednesday night. We're going to be hosting our next showcase there, and that's in the Philadelphia Founders area. So that's one of our team names down there in Philly. And we're excited about it. I think this is going to be our biggest card yet. If you've seen the first two, that we've had some pretty good names on it.
Mhm.
And this one I think is going to be the biggest one yet. So we're pretty excited about it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So before we get off here for this episode, I told myself, hey, this is the out of bounds. So I'm asking just a quick little out of bounds question. If you had full power of USA Wrestling, full power of it, funding, everything, what would you do?
I mean, I would make all these RTCs wrestle each other. Like, there's no reason they couldn't form a league themselves through the RTC format. You can incentivize these athletes to compete domestically. I think that's where if you're talking about freestyle wrestling not being as big, it's because these guys have to go to Azerbaijan and Turkey and Croatia to compete, and
Hmm.
we have the Bill Farrell, and then we have trials, and that's in the US Open, and that's about it. If you can get these guys wrestling in their wrestling markets, you want to build a following and then have these people invested in your RTC, that's the way to do it. And that's what we're doing here. You can consider us an RTC to an extent, I guess. I mean, our guys are branched out. Like when we build these teams, like they're not going to have a centralized training center in the early stages of this. You know, you're going to have coaches that are at their college campuses. You're going to have guys that are in RTCs that are training there. So it's going to be a mishmash of guys, but they're all going to come together on a dual meet day in a specific market and compete for their local market. And that's how we build community, and that's how we build a following, just like any other North American pro sports team does.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great idea. That would be great. That'd be awesome to see. Awesome to see. So, hey, once again, hey, Derek, thank you for coming on. For anyone listening, go to CWAWrestle.com for more information on the showcases, merch, everything else that's going on. Up and coming, you know, wrestling alliance that's I really feel like it's gonna blow up. So got a lot of great things going. So please check it out. They're also on Instagram too. You can catch a lot of snippets of a lot of the showcases. But if you want to go on Rofkin,
Yeah,
then you can check out the full showcase there and help support CWA Wrestle. Especially all the people in our wrestling community. We're tight knit. But at the same time too, try to support, figure out ways of supporting, telling people about this, tell people about the showcase. Like you said, they plan on being there at the NCAA, so it should be a really good following there, really good showcase, and a really great audience. So, but Derek, once again, thank you for coming on, and appreciate it.
yeah. Thank you, Quanto. I appreciate your time.
All right, and this is Out of Bounds with Quantel with Derek, and that's what we got. That's what we got. I'm still trying to figure out the how I'm gonna do the ending on that, but I'm gonna figure it out.